Hey, welcome to another episode of the
How's it
Becoming a
going?
Cop YouTube channel. And this is getting kind of fun. We already got two people watching. Chime
Uh-oh.
in if you do, I'll show you on screen, show your comments and your questions. With me again is the great Rob Berry. Rob, what's happening,
That's
brother?
me. Oh, not much. Enjoy the day off. Back to work tomorrow.
Today
Grinding.
was it President's Day?
It was.
It was President's Day. All
Yeah.
right. Well, then
I heard,
everybody, uh,
I heard California got a lot of rain.
California got a rain. Chris,
Oh,
what's
yeah.
happening, man? Good to see you.
Bear Grit
Chris is
Chris. All
here.
right.
All right, good deal. Chris, if you got any questions extra, let us know. We're happy to answer them for you. We lost one of our viewers. That's
All right,
fast.
turn them off. Oh, well.
That was fast, man. Today we're going to be talking about. Let me see exactly what I know. I know the title of it, but let me check and see
Really?
here. It was
Isn't it about the meet
the
and greet? And then,
was it interactions with the background investigator. So we're going to talk
yeah,
about
it was a
that.
meet and greet.
I did it in interactions with the background investigator.
Yes. You
That's
should
what it
know
was
that. You
called.
used to be a background investigator.
I still am. I still do it.
You
So
do?
it's kind of funny. People go, didn't you used to be a background investigator? And I go, I still do backgrounds because I do the consultations, I do the PHS reviews,
Oh, okay.
and all that stuff. And people don't realize that background investigators aren't all being able to do field investigations doesn't make you a background investigator, because during COVID, nobody went in the field. It was all telephonic. And so it's
Right.
not the field work that makes you a BI. It's the fact that you can do backgrounds, review cases, talk to candidates about their backgrounds, things like that. So,
I
and
will
there's
add
some,
on to that, too, because if you do an I was going to say, if you do an out-of-state agency, there is no field.
yeah, there's no field investigations. We used to, way back when, we used to go all the way up and down the state of California, and do those in person. And so each BI would take, each LAPD BI would take either inland or coast. And I would always take inland. I hated coast because I didn't feel like going through San Francisco and trying to stop at places. I did that one time and couldn't find parking anywhere. That bugged the heck out of me. I said, I'm never going on the coast again. So I would always do inland, Fresno,
Oh,
all the
yeah.
way up. I went all the way up to Susanville one time, which is on the border of Oregon. We'd be
Yes.
gone once a year. We'd be gone for 2 weeks at a time, just knocking on doors, talking to people, just like local. But they stopped doing that when personnel took over. Um,
Yeah.
and this, the texter, is that you or Chris?
Yeah, that's Chris.
The texter. Somebody was kind enough, and I don't know if it's Chris or not, to post on the Discord channel that we were going to be going live. And so that was pretty cool. Was that you or Chris?
That was Chris.
Chris, thank you so
Hence
much.
the name Taxter.
All right. Thank you for doing that. Before we start, I want to bring up that Robert Duvall died today. He's on the right there, and he was he Hodges in
He
Colors?
was,
He
yes,
was
Officer
Yeah,
Hodges.
that was a good movie. Back in the day, in the '80s, it was the end of watch for the 1980s crowd, and it was
Yep.
pretty popular with cops, I thought. But yeah, that was he passed away today, and I thought we should mention that. Let's talk about the topic. The topic, before we get into interactions with the BIs, let's talk about the meet and greet, because people, when they get the call, you turn your stuff in, you turn your PHS in, maybe somebody reviews it, blah, 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 whatever. You're talking to office staff, perhaps. And then all of a sudden you get an email or
Hmm.
a call from the background investigator. And the background investigator first says, I'm your background investigator. And all of a sudden you get the pucker factor come in. A lot of
Yep.
people get real nervous. And I get calls from people. I say, I got a call from the background investigator, and kind of nervous about that. And it's almost like you're meeting, I don't know who you're meeting. Because the funny thing about it, Rob, is this: when you're going through your background and you're talking to your background investigator, and sometimes they're kind of harsh, sometimes they're nice, but when you first get that call to meet the background investigator to go into the meet and greet interview, people freak out, and I think it's funny. But um,
I mean,
what?
I know why people freak out. So, I mean,
Why?
because this person's going to be basically uncovering every aspect of your life. And for most people who haven't been through it, or even if you have been through it, it's a little uncomfortable.
I agree. I agree, and I think some background investigators capitalize on that, and they act like they're kind of lording it over you, or they're taking that fear factor and making sure that you understand what's what, who's who, who's in charge, and that type of thing. The funny thing about it
Oh yeah.
is when you're during your background investigation, your BI is your bestest friend, the bestest friend.
Hmm.
Hello, BI. You need something? I'm here. I'm your guy. And then once a person gets hired, I've talked to people. It was not even that long ago that their background was done, or I don't know, a couple of years or whatever. And I go, so who was your background investigator? Oh, shoot, I don't know. I can't remember. So then all of a sudden, the background investigator's not in the club anymore,
Nope.
and people can't even remember who their. Do you remember who your PI was?
And for LAPD, no. I
What? What
mean,
is what is up with that? I remember mine.
I I remember as an older guy. I think he was military, but I don't remember. I mean, I've had people ask, like, obviously an application and stuff like that, and I'm like, I don't remember.
That's funny. I've called up people, and I said, "Hey, I'm your background investigator. I'd like to schedule your meet and greet with you." And there's like this little gasp of air. A lot of people, they go because they're not expecting it. It's just background investigators calling you to go into the background. That's like just it just happens. There's no a lot of times there's no emails or anything like that, but
Right.
they'll call you and they'll say, I need to schedule you for this, or let's talk about it. So what happens, and you've met with a few
A
background
few.
investigators, a few.
A few.
What happens when you get that call that your background investigator wants to talk to you and have the meet and greet and go over your application with you?
I mean, so I obviously have met with a few. It's like I remember when I was going through the process to get rehired with LAPD, which didn't work out, but for the better. Um, it was actually an officer that was doing the background. So, it was a little it was different, but at the same time it wasn't, just because it was a newer officer. I think he maybe had like 4 or 5 years on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which I thought was kind of interesting. But it's still, I mean, it's they're emailing you like, "Hey, I'm your background investigator. Set up a meet and greet. Bring all your documents, stuff like that." I kind of knew what to expect. So I know it's going to be a couple hours, and they're going to go through everything, and up until that point, just go over all the information, make sure it's accurate, stuff like that. And I knew too, like, that's where my experience comes into play. I knew it was going to be a lengthy process. I knew they had to go check all residences, all work history, and everything. So, knowing what a background investigator has to do, I came well prepared with everything that they might need. So that helped, but still a lengthy process regardless.
And even you, with the experience that you had, I mean, you're a seasoned cop by then, and it's not like you were 21 years old and you had graduated high school 3 years ago and you were just young and dumb and all that kind of stuff. You were older.
Uh,
So when you get to
yes.
meet when you went to meet background investigators, was it still kind of was there like that little nervous factor?
I mean, a little bit, only because, like, going back to what I mentioned before, this person's going to be basically prying into my entire life, in some form or fashion, and so, just like I said, it's normal to feel like a little apprehension about that because, we're normally private people, and to have somebody contact former employers, landlords, neighbors. The neighbor thing was actually kind of interesting because, I mean, most people, you don't know your neighbors, or
Right.
very little actually maybe know their first name. So, I knew like, all right, they're gonna have to talk to the neighbors. So actually having to physically go over to my neighbor's house, knock on the door, and be like, "Hey, I'm the neighbor across the street. I've lived here for like 5 years, but it's nice to meet you finally." Um, and get like explaining to them I was going through the process. And my neighbors, back in California were pretty cool. So I had no problem telling them I was, going through the process with a couple different police agencies. Other people might have some issues with that. And so, like it's still kind of nerve wracking for people to invade your life like that, like a background investigator does.
Like when you went to the different background investigators, did you notice that were they all the same? Were they different? Was it a personality thing? Were some jerks? Were some cool?
Um, it was vastly different. So like, the LAPD one, like I said, he was a newer officer, so he was very by the book. Like I really felt like I was brand new applying there for the first time. The way I got treated, which I knew because he, you know, probably didn't do that many backgrounds, or he was newer, so of course he's going to treat me like anybody else. I've had other background investigators where, very nonchalant. It was like just going to have a cup of coffee with them. We're just talking and having normal conversation. Um, there were some that I never actually had a meet and greet with. And I know that's a little more common now if it's a smaller agency and they contract out with a company like Pelicon's a big one, where they contract out with. You never have a meet and greet with that person. It's all
Hmm.
done via email. So, um,
Yeah. And
and like
and the good.
I was gonna say my current agency, because it was out of state of California, I still have yet to meet him. Um, So it's actually one of the things I want to do is actually finally meet him in person because I've had phone conversation with him, but never met him in
Oh
person.
yeah. Yeah. Background investigators and you guys in the people in the audience, are they police applicants? Are they pretty much
It's a variety. I mean, I don't know how many are actually watching right now, but
six? There's six people.
ooh, we're popular. We're probably going to be a mix there. Because on the Discord uh, server, there's a mix of applicants. There's people actually on the job. Either police, fire, military, corrections, jailers, and then there's other people just like there because they have questions or maybe are going to be going through the process.
Cool. Are we able to give a shout out to the Discord server, so people know that's the
Sure,
place to be?
I'm sure Tack would love that, or
Yeah.
Chris.
Tech, tell us, man. What's the Discord server about? Um, in the meantime, while we wait for that to come up, there background investigators. A lot of times, uh, I've talked about this quite often. There are a lot of people that shouldn't be background investigators. They're mean, they're nasty, they're rude, and they didn't ask to be background investigators. A lot of them got shoved in there, and
Right.
you could tell they don't like their life. I remember, if you can imagine the LEPD backgrounds, there's a sea of cubicles that were background investigators. Around the outside of the cubicles were interview rooms, and that's where the meet and greets would be.
Yep, I
Um,
remember
and
that.
also, also the rooms were used for discrepancy interviews. And
Hmm.
I remember one time there were two female background investigators. They took a candidate into the room, and it was
Uh-oh.
maybe there's a cubicle on the other side of me, and on the other side of that was the door for the interview room. I'm telling you, these these BIs, these two BIs were dressing down the candidate. You could hear them yelling through the door. And if that ever happens to anybody who watches this, that is not the right way to do background investigations. So
Yeah, that would be bad.
we got is it Nightrock 44 and Jesus or Jesus
And it's Jesus
and
probably.
Jesus, and Justin is here, and we didn't get the answer we wanted. So can you give us the lowdown on the Discord?
Yeah, I mean the channel name is IRDT. It's called Iron. I think it's Iron Directive. What I do is I could send you the link to it, the invite link if anybody wants to join. Um, but yeah, it's a pretty cool group. I think we have like 350 people on it now.
That's pretty
Um,
good.
and we've got, like I said, a mix of people all over the U.S. Some West Coast, some East Coast, and like I said, it's a mix of people who are either in the process, thinking about going through the process, or are actually, already hired.
Okay. Natalie is an applicant. Good to see you
Yes,
here.
I know Natalie.
If you guys have questions, go ahead and throw them in there. It doesn't have to be about this particular topic, but if I have an answer, I will give it to you. If I do not have an answer, I will look it up. But for the most part, I think I have mostly everything on the top of my head. And Justin likes the Discord
There you
server.
go.
That's pretty cool.
All because of me, I mean, I'm the star
Because of
of this,
you,
so
you're popular. You're
yeah, no.
popular. So when it comes to BIs and meeting with the candidates, a lot of candidates come out of interviews or talking to the BIs, and the candidates feel like crap. They feel like they're not worthy,
Yep.
even if they go in with a really good attitude. They go, "I think I have a pretty good background. I think I'm pretty good. I'm pretty solid." And you walk out of there and you feel like crap. Why do you think that is?
I mean, so this is the way I look at it. So, the meet and greet really it's for your background investigator through your entire, everything that you fill out. Because you fill out, it's ever growing. I think it's like now close to 40 pages of your entire life history. And so basically your background investigator goes through all that to make sure everything's accurate. So it makes their job easier.
Mhm.
Um, and it's kind of, they're blunt. I mean, that's kind of I think the purpose of a background investigator is like, all right, like this is all that, and so as an applicant, yeah, I think you're gonna feel like, realistically, you're gonna feel like crap because all the questions they're gonna have during it is gonna be things that might be potential issues. If
Mhm.
it's traffic tickets, if it's complaints, accidents, write-ups at work, whatever the case is. I mean, they're not going to spend time on things that aren't going to be an issue. You know, like if you have a stellar work history, they're not going to ask really any questions about it. But if you have write ups at work, yeah, they're going to ask about it. They're going to ask about the details about it. What happened? What was the punishment? Stuff like that. So it's going over all the negative aspects of your background first, so they know kind of what to expect.
There's something on the PHS. Some agencies or states call it the PHS, the personal history statement, the PHS, the PHF, personal history form, or the application, the PHQ, whatever you call it. It usually starts with a P. It's
Yeah.
the application. Basically, it's the application. I had somebody contact me one time for a consultation. I said, "Hey, here's the PHS, here's the application. Usually like about 30 something pages, pretty intensive, and they ask you for a lot of information going back. People say, how far back does the background investigation go? The answer is go back to the day you were born, the day after that. That's when the background investigation starts. And I had specific, you know the word, um,
Specifically.
specifically a candidate get a hold of me for a consultation. I go, hey, I need you to fill out the sad Chris. I don't feel that way, Chris. I don't feel that way about you, man.
Oh, jeez.
Top notch. So I send her the PHS, and then I don't hear from her for a couple weeks. And then I finally got a hold of her. It's like a few weeks later, and I said, "Hey, so are you still doing the consultation? Let me know what's going on so I can keep you in the system or not." She got a hold of me and she sent this email to me. She said that she started filling out the PHS, and it had everything, every mistake, every bad thing, everything. All of a sudden, all these things that she didn't want to think about. They were all on these pages in front of her. And
Yep.
she said, I don't want to apply anymore.
Yeah, that can happen.
And so, I mean, the PHS, you have to know going into your background investigation, man, they dive deep. Whatever you put on your PHS, guaranteed if it's something that piques the interest of the background investigator, they're going to want information. And this
Yep.
includes everything. So you had sex in the car. How many times? Do you have names of the people that you were with and blah blah? I mean, it could be, who knows what background investigators are going to ask, but it's
Right.
very intrusive.
Oh yeah.
Uh, we got a question. What separates an applicant who sits at the bottom of a BI stack as opposed to one who truly stands out and gets reached out first? It depends on the department. There are some departments that tier candidates,
Hmm.
and the better ones. Back in the old days, I did a video on this about non-selects and DQs. A lot of times, non-selects back in the day when you had 500 candidates for 3 openings, the way that you used to thin out the herd was you would do non-selects. Oh, this person's got a master's degree, and this person has a bachelor's degree, and this person is 25, and this person has a high school education, and this person only has had one job at fast food. Then they would non-select the ones that weren't top tier, and they would non-select them to thin out the herd. Nowadays, what separates an applicant, and when you say sits at the bottom of the BI stack, that's kind of a loaded question because in 2026, police departments are absolutely hurting for applicants. They're hurting for people. So a lot of people that didn't have a good chance before, they're in there, man. They're like 75% better than they were
Hmm.
maybe 10 years ago. And so in 2026, when someone tells me, yeah, I'm having problems, that people are putting them in front of me, I'd have to see your PHS to see what your background is like in order to figure out what the problem is, because there's always somebody that can go ahead of you. But for the most part, a lot of agencies, they take the cases in order and they start working them. If they're working your background, likely they're, unless something comes up, they're going to finish it because there's not a lot of background investigators that I know that are knee deep in a background investigation doing the field work and the thing all set that will drop it to work on another person's background because, oh, this is a neat candidate, this is a good looking candidate. We got some other questions. I hope that answers your
I will
question.
say to kind of expound upon what they're talking about, what separates bottom of the pile versus what stands out. So what I've noticed is, in my experience recently, when a background investigator reaches out and says, "Hey, I'm your background investigator," whether they're doing a meet and greet or not, they're going to send out your letters to your references first. When typically it's via email, so they're going to send it to all your family, all your references, even your neighbors and landlords and stuff like that. So what I've noticed, what I think happens is they'll send those out, and then where you sit as far as like or how much attention your background file gets depends on how quickly either you get responses or the background investigator gets responses back from your references, or how quickly, because I've had it where they'll send it out and then like 3 days later they're following up with me saying, "Hey, I haven't received anything back from these 5 references." If you're responsive and be like, "All right, I'll get on top." If you get your responses back from the references, whoever they email it to, fairly quickly, you're going to stand out more because they're going to be like, "All right, this person's responsive. They're on top of it." It's going to be an easier background to do versus the one where, if they're not getting any responses back from anybody they've emailed and you're not responding, then they're going to be like, "All right, you're less of a priority because you're not responsive enough."
Well, I'll clarify on the reference letters. Prior to say 2017, all the reference letters used to, or most of the reference letters used to go out on mail, or they would be individually mailed out by the BI. Fast forward to 2017, 2018, companies like eSoft, NTN, Guardian would let you do it electronically, and then you'd put all the names of your references and email addresses.
Mhm.
The way it works now is that's the easiest thing for the BI to do, to click a button and bam, all the reference letters go out at once. Don't get excited. Do not get excited if your references start telling you, hey, I got your reference letter. And then a lot of candidates think, oh, bam, I'm starting. Your background may not start for 3 months
Right.
because the background investigator is just trying to get ahead of it. They push the button, reference letters go out. And so it's not really an indicator. The indicator is if your boss comes to you and goes, hey, so the background investigator came and looked at your personnel file. Once they start doing field work, your background is moving.
Mhm.
The background investigator is doing work. Catching up to these questions. What are the Rob? You applied at PD and sheriffs. I know an answer to this. What is your answer? What are the benefits
I
being with
mean,
the sheriff's department rep? Let me finish, man. Let me
okay,
finish.
relax.
I'm reading the
Jeez.
question. Away. What are the benefits being the sheriff's department rather than the police department? What do you think, Rob?
Am I okay to answer now? Just want to make sure.
You have a go.
Yeah, okay. I mean, realistically, like, I mean, I think they're both great because they both have different uh opportunities. I mean, sheriff's department typically you have, you work not only patrol, but then you also have the opportunity to work jail or even courts. Whereas a police department primarily is just, patrol. And obviously the specialized units there. But, for me, I there's pros and cons to both. I mean, I think with sheriffs, you have, you not only have patrol and the specialized units within patrol, but then you do have an opportunity to work, work the jail or work the courts if that schedule works better for you. I mean, me personally, I've been a big proponent of people working the jail first, or at least getting experience there, just because it's a whole different animal than patrol. Like, in the jail, you don't have really you have very limited tools you can work with to deal with the inmate population that you're in charge of. So, you have to be able to use the words command presence. You actually have to, use verbal judo to, gain control of a situation. Whereas out in the street, you could use force. You've got a lot of other tools, that you could use. Whereas in the jail, you don't. So, I mean, like I said, they're both pros and cons. They're both great. Just depends on where you're at. And if you're opposed to working in the jail, then you probably don't want to work for a sheriff's department.
Yeah, and the thing about sheriff's departments is there's a few differences. One of the things about the sheriffs, most states, sheriff's departments are mandated to maintain the jails, not work
Right.
patrol. That's not their mandate, not to do patrol. So a lot of times, candidates will get hired by a sheriff's department and they go right to the jail. And you can spend a considerable amount of time in the jails.
Oh
If
yeah.
that's not your gig, then you probably might want to think about a police department. Another thing that the difference between sheriffs and police are the police chief and the sheriff.
Oh yeah.
Police police chiefs are appointed. They're generally appointed. They're beholden to the city council, to the mayor, to the city manager, where sheriff's department are elected officials. A lot of agencies, the sheriff's department, have never been police officers. They're elected officials. And most sheriffs, the reason people gravitate towards them is because most sheriffs do not give a crap what the board of supervisors or those other people say about how they run their sheriff's department because they're elected officials, just like the county board of supervisors, anybody else. They don't answer. They don't answer to politicians. And a
Mhm.
lot of people like that. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Um,
unless you're LA County, then they have their own
that's the
rules.
difference. They make rules.
Yes.
Uh, Kelly Squid says hi,
Oh
and
yeah.
it is Recolon. Recolon? I
Leon.
was
Let's call him
ah
Leon. It's easier.
Leon, and I'm not sure where this pertains to. I work for a living. I work for a living. Cali Squad wants to know: do you rotate candidates day by day, or do you process X amount of candidates per day? I'm not sure what that means. If you can clarify that for me, happy to answer
I
that.
mean, I think I know what he means by that. Or at least
Yes.
I'm assuming. So, when he says process rotate candidates, like, do you work on certain candidates certain days? So you like work candidates A through H, one day, and then the next candidate that day, or is it just, hey, you got to process, work on 10 candidates for this day?
Oh, okay.
Um,
So let's say for instance, just for the heck of it, a BI is holding 10 cases that they're working. Can a background investigator actually work 10 cases at once? Yes. The best background investigators can work several cases at once. For instance, a lot of the stuff is paperwork. You get paperwork in, mailed to you from police departments, record checks, things like that. You get that, you look at it, nothing here, put it in the file. The way they work field investigations is that if you get candidates, and most of the time you'll get candidates that are in the area that you close by where you live, or they're all kind of clustered in the same area. What you do is you take all the calls and then you kind of group them into certain areas. Say you have 3 candidates that live in this county and 3 candidates that live in this county, and then you map them out where you do all the calls in 1, 2, 3, 4 days, and you get them all done at once. So you can work several candidates, but if you're actively working several candidates, you do a lot of the field calls during the same time period. And then slowly but surely, as the case starts to wind up and you have less and less to do, those candidates rise to the top and the BI will finish those first. So there's really no, I wouldn't say there's any rotating candidates. It's just whatever comes up on the radar that day. But the goal is to finish that group within a certain amount of time, and you can do it all at the same time. It's pretty amazing. Background investigators can do a lot within, say, 30, 60-day period on several candidates. Let's see what Justin says. I've been told working in the jail helps build up on how to talk to people before getting on the street. 100%. Rob, you were talking about that.
oh yeah, and actually, so good little shout out talking about Robert Duvall in Colors.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you ever watched the movie Colors, which probably anybody under the age of 40 probably hasn't, unfortunately. I actually rewatched it today, but that's a good example of how there's two different ways of talking to people, and there's no right or wrong way, but talking about you know building up how to talk to people. I mean, like I said, you have very limited tools in the jail, so it's all about how you talk to them.
Yeah.
How you treat them, how they treat you, how you respond. How much, because obviously inmates are there 24/7, so they're not going anywhere. Whereas you actually have a shift, so they have nothing but time to know how to push your buttons, or keep pushing to see what they can get, and how you talk to them and how you treat them dictates everything.
Yeah,
That's why, like I
I've
said,
been I've been told that a lot of times working in the jail it's invaluable as far as being able to talk with get down to the level of where the arrestees are, because these are street thugs. And I remember when I first got in the field, I had grown up if anybody knows, in San Gabriel Valley, California, Hacienda Heights, California,
oh
a
yeah,
small little bedroom community.
I know where that's
And
at.
I remember when I got out of the academy, I was assigned to Newton Division Patrol. And New Division is right next to 77th Division. And so when I got out there, I was this Hacienda Heights kid, and I'd be on the street. I'd be on the street, and I would talk to people, and I'd go, "Yes, yes, fellow gang member, talk to me about your homies." And I'd be like, "I don't know what I'm talking about, man. I got no clue." But by the time I got a few years on the job and I was talking with them back and forth, I could talk to gang members all day long.
Oh yeah,
So this is what happens in the jail. You go into jail, and there's a reason why a few deputies can handle 100 inmates, and the inmates don't give them any flack at all, because
oh
they know
yeah,
how to talk to them. They know, and they're it on the street and in the jails. There's a respect factor. How you talk to you can't go in there gangbusters and act like you're large and in charge and you're the man and all that. When you have a rapport with them and they understand you and you understand them, then it helps a lot. So I think working the jails for that purpose is huge. Um, Kelly agrees with you.
Yep, of course.
Some of these are a bit ago, so I don't know what it's planned for
You know, and
LAPD.
so it's interesting you mentioned. So you grew up in Hacienda Heights. You know, you obviously know where Glendora is?
Yeah,
So it's funny. We actually had similar stories because you know you grew up in Hacienda Heights and you went to Newton when you first got hired. I grew up in Glendora, which isn't too far away from Hacienda Heights, and my first division was Southeast Division.
there you go. Because
Oh yeah,
Glendora Southeast, same.
of course. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, within 5 years, I was on the street and I was talking with parolees, and you know how that goes. And to be able to, when I think back on it, from where I came from to where I was actually on the street, able to talk to parolees and respect, what they were doing out there, and so they wouldn't kill me, and for them to respect me, knowing, hey, man, I got the cavalry here if you want to act up and stuff like that. And nothing happened
Yeah.
because I learned to speak with them. And you did the same thing in Southeast,
Oh
which
yeah.
borders 77th as well. In fact, I think Southeast is where the Rodney King riot started. Is that correct?
I think that was 70. That was 77th because it's Florence
Seven,
and Normandy.
Florence and Normandy. I don't know if
I
that's
think it was.
Southeast or
That's
77th.
77th.
Um, Callie says for LAPD, do you travel to other counties to do background check on applicants who applied to multiple agencies? The answer is yes, for the most part. Say you have 10 applications and 9 of them are applications only. You never heard anything back. You never turned in a PHS. Those ones nobody goes to. Background investigators, what they're most concerned with is the PHSs that you completed and turned in, because they want to check those PHSs. So wherever they are, background investigators generally have areas that they work. And so whatever counties, when I was working backgrounds for LAPD, I would go to LA County, Riverside County, Orange County, and I didn't think I went any farther than that. But those are some huge counties,
Hmm.
and so wherever the calls take you, that's where you go. So yeah, you travel to whatever counties where the calls are. Um, what's the
Justin.
best way to become a traffic cop? That's my career goal, is to just do traffic, like join the traffic enforcement division and eventually become Texas DPS, which they only do traffic and motor vehicle accidents. Traffic. What do you think, Rob?
I mean, so I guess I will ask. So when you say traffic cop, do you mean so? There's two different types of traffic cops. There's ones that are on the motorcycle, like a motorcycle unit, or one in a car. I think uh, Texas DPS is only in the car. I've been pulled over by them before. That's how I know. Um, CHP. Uh, so I mean, best way to become a traffic cop really is get really good at. I mean, obviously, writing tickets is always a good thing to stand out, but then get good at doing accidents and accident reconstruction and I mean, heck, get good at DUIs. Like for me, I never worked traffic at LAPD, but I got he said car. Um, get good at doing accident reconstruction, do whatever training you can, like, if you want to do radar or LiDAR, stuff like that, or get really good at DUIs because, patrol cops hate DUIs. They think it's time consuming and stuff like that. But I mean, I love DUIs. I was a drug recognition expert for, I think, what, almost 10 years.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so, I get good at DUIs because that's an invaluable resource, and you stand out when you actually like get really good at DUIs and become a drug recognition expert, depending on the agency, because those they're there's not that many of them. I think California has like maybe 1,000. So I'm
Wow.
sure Texas probably has less, but that's a great way to become a traffic cop. Is just like I said, learn how to do accident reconstruction, get good at doing stuff like that. And then, DUIs is a big thing too. That way you can get on like a deuce watch unit or whatever where, you know, you get on there and that's how you get in the traffic division.
That's not very many DREs for a state with a
No,
population of almost 40 million people.
nope.
One thing about that, about traffic, I was never into traffic. And police officers, once you get in the field, you kind of get a taste for what you like. I worked with people that they were street cops, but they loved to do dope arrests, and some loved DUIs and things like that. The thing about traffic is that if that's what you want to do, I would grab the opportunity to learn as much as you can. So if you join like DPS, you can do DUIs and traffic accidents. The thing that I find interesting about traffic cops, they get to go into motors, and then also when they retire, I would, if I was doing that, I would hone my skills and go to every class for accident reconstruction, all that, because when you retire and some big accident happens and it needs to be reconstructed, there is buku bucks
Oh yeah.
in doing accident reconstruction. There's a lot of money, and that's something that I would, that'd be cool.
I mean, there's a lot of insurance companies. The adjusters are retired cops. And most of the time they're retired traffic cops because they know how to do accident reconstruction and they know how to do everything. So there's
Yeah.
a secondary employment there too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I think that's pretty cool. Um, what do you got here, Rob? What's your favorable moment as an officer and as a BI?
That's all
Um,
you.
yeah, I mean, as an officer, my favorite. I'm trying to think of favorable moments as an officer, and I seem to remember just like I guess bad stuff more than I think of good stuff.
Sadly, same here.
Favorable moment.
It's
Favorable
not your
moment.
magazine cover. That's not your most favorable moment.
That was a good moment. There is a
Yes.
magazine cover where somebody caught us during the 92 riots and we were walking in front of this big burning building in a squad, and they caught a group of us in there. That was pretty cool. I think probably one of my most favorable moments was during the 1984 Olympics.
Oh yeah.
And we were working patrol. I was working patrol, and this happened two times on the same route. They had closed off the streets because the Olympic torch was running through Wilshire southbound on La Brea, and we were driving, we didn't even know really. We were driving up La Brea, just kind of wondering, guys, a ghost town here. Where is everybody and everything? And then we got closer to where it borders Hollywood division, and there were all these people lined up. And what they were doing, they was waiting for the torch runner to come by for the Olympics. And so we got up there and people thought we were part of it. And as we drove our police car up the street, people started cheering and yelling and, oh, this is amazing, and things like that. We turned around and went back. We go, oh, we're famous or something like that. But
Oh
that was kind of
geez.
cool. One of my favorite times as a BI was there were several times when I got candidates that were untouchable for other agencies. And these candidates, I had one candidate specifically that Ruben Avalos. He had 30 applications. He had been applying for 10 years, couldn't even get an audience with a BI or anybody else. And I got his file and it landed on my desk and it's like this thick. I'm going, golly, what is it? So I got so pissed. I went into my supervisor's office and I said, "Hey, man, what's up with this case? Why am I assigned this case?" And so I talked to them, whatever, and I went back and did the case. So I started going through it. He had like 10 DQs. I'm going through it. I'm going through it. I'm going, where are the DQs? Turns out there were one or two departments that actually did investigations on him, did the field work on him. The rest of the DQs were because the other agencies DQ'd him.
Yep.
The BIs were too lazy to go and do the investigation. So I go, okay, fine, fine. So then I go and I look at all their stuff that they had DQ'd him for. And then it turns out that all the crap that they had DQ'd him from, like employment issues, things like that, they were too old. They weren't even on the radar for a DQ. So I went ahead and I finished the case, and he got hired in the March 2007 class, and
Oh, right before me.
right before you. And so because because a BI said, you know what, let me look at this. And come to find out, there was a crap load of other investigations that either weren't done or they were just crappy DQs because they wanted to get rid. It's so much work. There's so much work here. I can't possibly do all this work. They didn't even give the guy a chance. And now he's been on LEPD for over 18 years because somebody looked at his file and said yes. So there's other cases like that, and that's probably one of my favorite. But there's other candidates where nobody would look at them, and all you need, guys, is you need one BI. After all the no's that you get, you just need one BI to say yes. And so I guess I hope that answers the question. Chris says, "What's the most important skill for Leo to possess and why?" Oh boy, what's the most important? I got nothing. I'm trying to
What?
think of what's the one most important skill.
I mean, okay, so the app. This is my. I will die like on my sword on this one. The most important skill is being able to talk to people. The reason being is, what do you think a cop does day in and day out? I mean, yeah, you do paperwork, stuff like that, but you're talking to people. Every call you
Mhm.
go to, you're talking to somebody different, different background, whatever. So the most important skill you can possess is just the ability to talk to people and be likable. I mean, because more often than not, if you're somebody thinks doesn't like you, you're not going to get cooperation from them. But if you can talk to somebody, I mean, you were mentioning it before, like and it goes into the movie Colors. It's just being able to talk to somebody, anybody, whether it's a victim or a hardcore gangster. If you can talk to them and, like I said, being able to develop a rapport with them, that goes a long way with everything. You'll get into less uses of force, less fights, less complaints. If you have an ability to talk to people and actually like treat them like a human being.
Yeah, and for me, I think that's important. And for me, um, Chris, I think one of the most important things, if not the most important skill for a police officer, is common sense. I have done probably, oh boy, over 2,000 interviews with police candidates, and there have been numerous candidates that have master's degrees and bachelor's degrees, and they were book smart, but they were common sense stupid. They
Hmm.
were just got no common sense. And in police work, you have got to have the wherewithal to know what decisions to make right now. And there's no, it's in milliseconds that you have time to make a decision. And if you don't have common sense, you won't survive out there. You'll end up in jail or something, man, because you make stupid decisions.
Oh yeah.
So I think sounds like my experience with an old BI. Glad to hear he got hired. Yeah, this is a cool thing. I'm still in touch with him. With do you know Ruben? Rob?
I mean, name sounds familiar. I probably, if I saw his photo, his face, I probably have worked with him before.
Yeah, and another thing that's really cool is a BI. There's a ton of people that I still talk to today. I did their backgrounds. When a BI does your background, they can't be your friend. They can't be your friend. They're not there to be your friend. But usually for me, after a candidate gets hired, they go through the academy and they graduate the academy, then we can be friends. And there's a lot of candidates that I did backgrounds on. I still talk to them today. There's been three specifically that have contacted me probably in the last 2 years. And they said, "Hey, I just want to reach out to you because I found you on Instagram and you did my background, and I'm retiring now after 25 years. And I may feel old at times, but boy, that's a good feeling where you hired a good copper and they did their time, and now they're gonna enjoy retirement." But that's how long I've been doing backgrounds, and
It's
it's
a
really a
long
cool
time.
feeling. Yeah, it's a really cool feeling. I have an upcoming chief interview tomorrow, so it's been practicing and looking forward to it. Those chief interviews, man, I don't. LAPD doesn't do chief interviews. You get one interview, and then
Right.
that's it. At the beginning, they don't do chief interviews. But I found out a lot of times is you can pass everything, and then you got to make it past the chief.
Yep.
And sometimes they can be picky, but it's that last thing where the chief is the one who actually anoints you as a member of the department.
I remember one of the agencies I was applying with in Southern California, before they do like the full background, you have a Chiefs interview. And I remember, sitting down with the interview and, they didn't like me. And I mean, I think I know why. I won't say here the reason why, but let's just say LAPD there's a common denominator with LAPD. Um, but yeah, no, I didn't pass it, and pretty much got blackballed from them. So
Yeah, and that's
unfortunately, but yeah,
not to say that'll happen to Chris, but it's one of those things where it's a little different than this song and dance that you do on a normal oral interview panel. This is one on one with the chief, or maybe there's more than one person there in command staff that's there. So it's just a matter of either you're a good fit or you're not. But for the most part, I feel that Chris is a fit.
oh yeah, he is. I mean, it's also too like so. Chief's interview is you have to be likable. You know, like that's a big thing too. And again, it goes back to the biggest skill is being able to talk to people. You know, for the Chiefs interview, you want to be like, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Be respectful and be likable. Because basically, realistically, Chief has a final say on whether you get hired or not, regardless of what point in the process you're at. So you want them to like you. And I would say
Yeah,
too, so this is one tip I'll give Chris. For the Chiefs interview, read up, do a little research on the chief, find out their background, meet, stuff like where what they've done in the department, where they went to school, what accolades they have. Read up on their biography, so that way when you go to answer questions, you can kind of maybe tie them into like obviously don't make it obvious that you've done research on them, but let's say they spent 5 years, in narcotics or whatever the case is, answer it like, kind of throw that topic in there, or whatever the case is, like if they have an interest, throw it in your answers, like for it to be natural, like you're adding it in there, but then they'll pick up on it and be like, oh, like, they like, narcotics or whatever. And like they're working narcotics unit and you're like, yeah, one of my interests, I want, get involved in narcotics unit, stuff like that. That'll go a long way because then it shows you've actually done the research and
yeah,
do research on the department. And this is a big thing too when it comes to department interviews or interviews in general. Why that department? Why choosing them over anybody else?
yeah. Obviously, be very respectful. Go dressed
Yeah.
appropriately. Um, I'm just shocked at times that people who apply to be police officers go into the office and look like they just came from the skate park.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's common sense.
Yep.
So, um, Jesus has a question for you, Rob.
For me.
I'm not, yeah. How are you supposed to answer the question? Tell me about yourself. I heard something about this a long time ago, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I was told a long time ago that when an oral boarder asks you, tell me about yourself, they're not saying, hey, so I'm married and I have two kids and I love them. They're not looking for that. What are they looking for, Rob?
So I would say when they ask, tell me about yourself, you want to tell them stuff that you haven't already told them in any kind of paperwork. Like, oh, I went to school here, or this is where I work, blah, blah, blah. They don't care about that because they already know that, you know.
Hmm.
Tell them about like what your dreams and aspirations are like. Hey, it's me, I grew up or whatever the case is, but like, hey, um, you have this interest in, whatever the case is, like what your goals are. I mean, because that's not on any paperwork. That's revealing something about you that they wouldn't know already. Um, don't like I said, don't answer like, oh, I'm not married. I live, in Los Angeles, blah blah, because you're not making yourself stand out.
Right. Yeah, and I heard the same thing. Is they're not really asking, don't tell me about what I already know. I looked at your application.
Right.
They're asking for, and I would research that. I don't. My forte is not oral interviews, and so it's difficult for me to really, you know, give my opinion on that stuff because I hate oral interviews. But other than that, I always thought that I don't know how you felt about it, but I always thought oral interviews were like a dog and pony show. Hey, look at me. I can juggle. I can do all this. And do I look cool? So they,
I I hate oral interviews because yeah, to me they're like I said, it's dog and pony show. It's like I mean, and most of the time, now granted, Chiefs interview are different because that's not structured, but like most interviews with the department are structured. They can only ask certain questions. So it's like, all right, all the answers are gonna kind of be similar. But I mean, going back to the question, like tell me about yourself, like I said, use that to make yourself stand out. Like, what's something that they don't know already, you
right,
know? And I would use it to talk about like what your goals are. Like, hey, like what's your, and don't say, hey, as soon as I get off probation, I want to go, here, here, here. It's like, no, okay, like, that probably won't go over well. Be like, my 5-year goal, eventually what I want to do, this is my interest. This is what attracted me to law enforcement or attracted me to the department. Stuff like that. Something that they don't know already.
right. This is such a good question. Kelly Squid, you in the internet today. In your personal and professional opinion, is the process to be a Leo feel unfair at times? 100%, man. 100%. It's unfair. I know you're chomping at the bit. You want to answer this one?
I know where he's coming with this.
Oh, go
So
ahead. Go ahead.
no, I mean, so in some aspects, yes, in some aspects, no. Um, when you talk about being unfair, I guess specific parts of it feel unfair. Like for instance, if you get non-selected or DQ'd, you don't really know why specifically. Especially if you're non-selected, because they just basically say, oh, sorry, like, we're not going with you. It's like, well, okay, well, what was it? Or if you got DQ'd, they give you a general list of like, 5 things like, oh, in these areas, you weren't suited. It's like, okay, well, what part? And they won't tell you anything about it, like how, what specific things, they found that reason we were disqualified or non-selected. So that part is frustrating. I understand that. But at the same time, I mean, the way I look at it is like, you know, is it unfair? Yeah, but life is also unfair at times. So you just take the good with the bad. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, let
And
me
oh,
go
go ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, there's a reason. Like me, I feel blessed that I got, either non-selected or actually I never got disqualified. It was always non-selected. The agencies that I applied to before, because I wouldn't be where I'm at now. I wouldn't be in a completely different state, completely uprooted my life to go to a different department in a different state. Like, I think that was far better than any other option I had in California. So to me, I see
Um,
everything happens for a reason.
yeah, I just want to shout out to Harjot. I hope I said that name right. Harjot Dillon, welcome. Um, the reason I say that, the question again is, in your personal opinion, is the process to be a Leo feel unfair at times? The reason I say yes is because it's completely subjective based on your background investigator, the departments you go to, and things like that. The reality is this, and this is the proof. You can get DQ'd by a department, walk across the street, apply at the department next door, and get hired. And you can, and I remember specifically one case where I looked at a case, and the candidate looked fine to me. I went over to a sheriff's department and I looked at their file. They had DQ'd the guy. I go, wow, what's going on here, man? What's going on? I looked at the DQ, and there was no DQ. For me, there was no DQ. And the sergeant, I don't know if I told you, if I mentioned this last time. Stop me if I did. But so I'm going, what's going on here? What is in the file here that makes this a DQ? And the sergeant came over. The clerical had called the sergeant over, and he goes, yeah, look at this. Look at this. And he's looking at me like I'm supposed to give him a reaction, going, holy cow, Sarge, look at that DQ. But that didn't happen with me. I go, okay. It was like some Mickey Mouse employment issue. And I closed the file out. I said, thanks you, everybody. And then I went back to my office, and the guy got hired 2 weeks later because one department goes, what a piece of crap. And another department goes, join us. So
Right.
the thing about that, to answer your question as simply as possible, is the answer is yes. It's subjective based on maybe the background investigator doesn't like something. Maybe it's just the system. Maybe there's other people that are getting hired that shouldn't get hired ahead of you, and they still do. Why? Because it's subjective. And so does it seem like it's unfair? And I can tell you from personal experience, after 16 years doing LAPD background investigations, I can tell you I've talked to every BI on the floor during the whole time that I was there. And every BI had a story. Go, man, I can't believe they DQ'd my candidate. And then those same BIs, you can ask them the same question, and those same BIs will say, man, I can't believe they hired that guy. And so it seems unfair because it is. that's a simple answer for me. Um, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to throw them out there. We're going to be doing these. Maybe we did one last week. We'll see how it
Yeah.
goes.
I'd say pretty regularly, as long as we have topics. So
We have tons of topics. And if you guys ever have a topic that you want for us to discuss, throw it out there. We're more than happy to discuss them for you. And as always, we'll put up usually the day before that we're going to go live. And if you like and subscribe and notify and all those things on YouTube, you'll get notified when you're going to go live. James has a comment. Fontana said I was either lying about using weed or I didn't have enough life experience. Which one is it? Got hired by LAPD? Someone? That's what I'm talking about.
oh yeah.
So you're a liar or you don't have enough life experience, and then LAPD says, "Come on, let's go."
Usually it's the other way around. LAPD is the one that like says no, and then some other agency picks you up.
It depends. LAPD confuses me with their hiring processes.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, that's not unusual, man. James, I'm telling you, this happens all the time. It drives background investigators nuts. You are certainly welcome, Kelly. I'm hoping I'm answering the questions. Let's see here. Chris says, "Let's get spicy a
Oh
bit."
no.
Personally, the polygraph prior to 2000, it was the BIs on LEPD that decided when or if a candidate was going to get a polygraph. We would say, hey, yeah, man, something's not right here. I don't feel good. I'm not getting the information that I think I need. And then we would say, hey, I think we need to give this person a polygraph. And that's how it would happen. 2001, well, it was before 2000, maybe it was 2001. And then everybody started getting polys. LEPD decided everybody was going to get a poly. And then everybody was failing their poly. And they were getting DQ'd on the poly all the time. So then LEPD came up with this thing where they have, where you weren't lying, but you were, you had
Inconclusive.
some, what were the
Like you had a
titles?
reaction or something like that to a
Yeah,
question.
I can't remember what the significant response, things like that. And so the polys started becoming just this convoluted thing. They were losing too many people in the poly, so they came up with tiers of what would be not a fail, what would be like we think something's wrong going on here, but we're going to let you pass. And it was all these things because they were losing too many people in the poly. So I have a love-hate relationship with the poly. I think, Chris, that the poly should be where it should be a tool. You should not be absolutely DQ'd on the poly unless during the poly or before the poly you make an admission that says that you were lying on the application or during the poly. If you flat out admit that you lied, then you should be a poly DQ. If you get past the poly and they can't quite figure it out, leave it to the BI to talk to the candidate and have a one-on-one and see if they want to talk about something. But other than that, flat out, there are people that go, "I love the poly. Poly's great. It's life." I'm not that guy. I don't think the poly's that great.
I mean, eh, yeah, it's to me. I mean, the poly it's a tool, but the way it's used is that's the controversy. Just because, I mean, I don't want to dive into like specifics on the poly because everybody talks about it and everybody wants like secrets or whatever. I mean, all the poly measures, and you can look this up. It's your like a response to, technically it's supposed to be a response to the question, but really, I don't want to dive into it because that could be probably like another hour. But
Yeah.
it's a tool. It's good and it's bad. It's good because some people will admit things that they normally wouldn't have. But then there's also times where, it's subjective because some examiners will accuse you of like, X, Y, and Z when it's not the case and hammer you on it. And then you'll get DQ'd because the examiner thought, you were lying and you said no.
Yeah. And here's another thing about the poly is that Chris, people have sat in the poly and the polygrapher says, "Hey man, you're testing dirty on domestic violence and theft from employer." And you go, "Shoo, I never done that." And then they go, "Okay, we're gonna give you another poly." So you take the poly same day. They focus. Now it's a specific poly, and they just focus on these two questions. And then they go, yeah, so you passed on theft from employer and domestic violence, but you tested dirty on theft. I'm like, or whatever it is aside, and all of a sudden now you passed it here, but you failed this part. And I'm like, what? Which one is it? Or you go to another agency and to take a poly, and you test dirty on something totally unrelated to the other agency that you failed. And so I'm like, well, what's the science here? Because how
Right.
can this be?
I mean, the science, and this is the way I look at it. It's like you're not testing dirty on anything. It's just there was a response by your body, whether it's to that question or not, who knows? But you had a response, and
Yeah.
that's what they see. So it's interpreted as, okay, well, you had a response to it, you must be lying.
Well,
You know, where it could be like the domestic violence one. Well, if you grew up with in a household that had domestic violence, of course you're going to hit on that question. But that's where beforehand they ask all those questions. They should already know, like, okay, well, you have family history of domestic violence or whatever, so they know that's not the case. Uh-oh, who are you looking at?
I'm being beckoned here. Uh, okay. So, anyways, what you were saying. Um,
I
Now,
mean, it's the polygraph. It's a tool. It's useful in some aspects, and it's not useful in a lot of others. You know,
yeah, and there are people that will stake their entire careers on the poly.
right?
They just, you can't talk them out of it. And I'm like, what's the science in it? Um, and so I don't have the best opinion about it, but I got, like I said, a love-hate relationship with it.
Right.
And real quick here, James, I knew Luis Segura. We used to work together in when I was there. He was there too. I'm not sure if he's still there or not. Um, Before we get to Kelly Squid, I'm going to get to your question. Here's something that came up. Do you think some agencies would drop the poly? I know Park Police dropped theirs, I believe. LAPD was going to drop their poly, I think, in
They've been talking
2024.
about dropping it for a couple of years. I don't think
Well,
they officially will yet.
what happened was they were going to drop the poly, I think, at the end of 2024,
Yeah.
when Chief Moore was there. And he had been wanting to drop the poly for a long time. And so they decided they were going to drop the poly. And then there were other things that had to be done. There's some legalities, there's civil service rules. You just can't all of a sudden flip the switch and tomorrow there's no poly. So there had to be things that
Right.
were done. In the interim, Chief Moore leaves. Chief, God, what's his name?
Really?
Jim McDonald comes in.
There you go.
Chief McDonald comes in, and like that, it dies.
Yep.
And so LAPD was going to drop the poly, and then it just whoever's in charge decided, no, we're not going to drop the poly, and it died. If you ask agencies if they're going to drop the poly, a crap ton of them will say no, no, we'll never drop the poly. And so I don't know of. I take it back. I know agencies that drop the poly. There are other agencies like Seattle PD that give you a poly, but you can fail it. So I'm not sure where it goes in, how it, you know, why they'd use it if you don't have to pass it.
Right. Right.
Um, let's see what I totally agree with Rob. Had 3 examinations, both for the first department, called me a dirty, rotten liar. But the second department got past first try and was truthful on both. Yeah, see, I don't know. Um,
It's all
let's talk.
subjective. That's the reason why.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. And some polygraph examiners are funny because I've seen DVDs of them doing the polys, and they're like, you think they were solving a murder? They had like a murderer, and they were going to get the answer, confess, things like that. Some polygraph examiners who've never done police work, but that's their thing. They like to do it. Let's talk about um,
The psych.
let's talk about the this psych, and then we'll probably end it for right now. But let's double down on the spicy level. What about the psych test? Oh my word, Rob, you've taken a couple of maybe psych exams. What do you think about them?
I mean, to me, I don't mind the psych test, because I mean, all you're basically doing, and I actually have an interesting story about my current department. When I did the psych test with them, found out my former department, although it may have been just a ploy by the psychologist, but um, I'll talk about that in a second. But I mean, to me, it's like, okay, you're talking to psychologists. They just want to make sure you're level headed, like, after everything, because you will see some stuff on the job that's going to mess with your head. So, at least when took the psych with LAPD the second time around, when I tried to get rehired, it was focused more on my childhood and just how I dealt with stress and why I'm trying to come back. So for me, I've had pretty easy psych tests or psych exams. My current department, I found out that, uh, and whether this is a ploy by the psych to see how it would respond or not, I don't know. But they had said that LAPD told them that I took a 1-day suspension for a complaint I had when all I had was just a written reprimand. So I thought that was kind of interesting that, one, the psychologist is telling me that, but it was super, like, their psych test lasted all of like 15 minutes. So it was just like, all right, sat down, talked with the guy for 15 minutes, and that was it.
Yeah, the
Um,
psych back in 2018, the end of 2018, LAPD psych was DQing about 70% of the candidates that we send over there,
that's a
and
lot.
they were really pissing us off. Um, but psych is one of those things where it's subjective as well. We on the Police Applicant podcast, we've done 2 episodes with Dr. Nicole Vienna, and she does pre-employment policies, and she kind of lays it out. And I asked all my questions, and she laid it out. And the interesting thing about the psych is you can pass the psych, or you can fail the psych at one agency and go to another one and pass.
Yep.
So it doesn't mean you're crazy. It just means that you didn't pass, you didn't meet the qualifications for that department, and you met the qualifications for another department. But it's interesting. I have people that call me and they go, "Hey, so I got DQ'd in psych." I said, "Don't worry about it. Do not worry. It means nothing in the big scheme of things. You can go apply somewhere else and go and get hired and pass the psych." The only caveat to that is there are agencies that farm out their psychs, and you might have 3, 4, 5, 6 agencies, and they use one psych doctor. And if you got
Yeah.
DQ'd at that psych doctor, guaranteed that they'll see you were a DQ for that doctor, and they'll probably just non-select you.
I mean, so kind of hitting on that, what are your thoughts on psych appeals? because I know people can do it. Appeal, like if they've gotten DQ'd on the psych, appeal it, but then you have to come out of pocket to do it. I've heard it costs quite a bit of money to do it.
Yeah, are psych appeals are a mixed bag because you can do a psych appeal, pay your $1,200 or whatever it is to appeal it. This doctor isn't going to tell you if you passed their psych exam, and also they'll turn their findings over to the agency that DQ'd you in the psych, and the agency doesn't have to. They don't have to do anything with that.
Right.
So it's a crapshoot as to whether your psych appeal will be granted based on a third party psych. And it doesn't really, it truly doesn't mean anything. They're not going to go, oh, that psych doctor disagrees with our psych doctors. Oh, yeah, we have to hire this person now.
It's
So I don't,
basically one person's opinion versus another. It's really what it comes down to.
right. And no, and even if you get a complete disagreement from the appeal psych doctor, it's not going to change the mind of the other psych doctor, and
Right.
there's different things. Uh, that there's different reasons for getting DQ'd, and some of them you can overcome. I know somebody got DQ'd in psych because they had their best friend died and they were dealing with the depression about that. They got DQ'd for that. One person had a stutter. The psych doctor said they had anxiety, and I mean, who knows all the stuff. And then that MMPI test, that 6 hour written exam that you got to take,
Oh
that
yeah.
that that plays into it too. A lot of people go in and they'll say, I got DQ'd by psych. And I go, what happened in the interview? I don't deal in psych because it's medical, but they'll say, I was in there for 15 minutes and you got DQ'd. And it's like, did the person make the decision ahead of time?
Right.
Or did they look at you and go, wow, 15 minutes is way more than enough time for me to talk to you? So when it comes to psych, I I don't get them, but they're psych doctors. They're medical people. I'm not. And background
Right.
investigators don't have anything to do with the medical stuff.
Right. I mean, my advice to anybody is just be yourself. They're gonna ask you pretty much about your entire life. You know, so just be honest, truthful, and just be yourself. That's all you can really do.
Really, they're just looking at the background investigation. And they're looking at all the stuff that the background investigator came up with, sent it to you. They're looking at your MMPI test, and then they make a determination um, whether meet their requirements. I still remember my psych exam from like 1979, and I walked in and the doctor was a jerk, and he was obviously trying to make me break, and
Yeah.
I guess I didn't really give a crap because I passed the psych, but he was just mean to me. He wanted to see if I would fold, and that was his psych test.
I remember my psych, the first go around when I first got hired in '07. Don't remember. All I remember was I had two psych exams. The first one I was in with I think it was a woman for like 2 hours. It was nuts. I was like, I felt, and she said it was inconclusive that she wanted me to have another psych doctor evaluate me. So I had to come back like a week later
Uh,
when met with the guy, and he looks at my file. He's like, I have no idea why she wanted me to do a second opinion. He's like, you look fine to me. And we talked for like half an hour on Law and Order. That was about it.
I know I know somebody, one of my candidates that called me and said I got DQ'd in psych. And I go, what? Yeah, go ahead and appeal it. He calls me later and he says, I told them I was going to appeal it, and then they passed me.
That's odd.
Yeah, go figure. But at any rate, I think we'll close this out. This is a really good session. I think a lot of people are from the Discord, but we had
Yeah.
some good questions. If you guys have questions and we're going live, bring them, because there's hundreds and hundreds of topics or questions that people can ask, and we'll come in probably on a weekly basis, and we'll come in with a topic and we'll talk about it. But then you can bring your questions in and ask away. So
Oh
thank
yeah.
you for everybody from, I think, the Discord. for being
Thank you.
here. And let me see, let me get this off. And remember, before I forget, we're part of the policebackground.net family. You can visit there and get consultations, oral interview prep, things like that. And also, we're part of the police applicant, is part of our family. You can Google the police applicant podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So join us there as well. And Rob, you got anything else to say before we go?
No, no. I'm looking forward to this next week. So as I go through the process and go through the pre-academy. So
All right, very cool. I'm
oh
excited to
yeah.
hear. We're excited to hear about your adventures.
It's been interesting, but we'll leave that for another time.
Yeah, there you go. All right, guys, thanks so much for being here. We'll come back next week.